Good afternoon. This is the Glendale Water and Power Commission. Today is November 7th, 2016, and I believe our first item is the roll call.
Commissioner Hale?
Here.
Commissioner Evanesian?
Here.
Commissioner Camargo?
Here.
Commissioner Lau?
Here.
Commissioner Chan?
Present.
That brings us to item number 2, our consent item.
2A, the approval of the October 3rd, 2016 minutes.
So without objection, we can approve the minutes unless anyone has any amendments. Seeing none, those items are now approved.
3, GWP Commission staff comments.
Any comments from commissioners? Seeing none? Sorry, seeing one. Commissioner Lau, sorry.
Just wanted to congratulate the GWP staff on an excellent utility day. It was a hot day, but a great turnout, and I really enjoyed seeing members of the community, school children, other staff from other departments touring the facilities and seeing the demonstrations. It was a great day, so thank you very much.
I have a comment.
Commissioner Albanese.
2 weeks ago, I met Mr. Ramon at his office, and I learned a lot about the operation that he has got. I appreciate for his patience answering my questions. Thank you, Mr. Ramon.
Okay. With those comments, I'll ask you, Steve, do you have any comments to offer? Okay. I guess that will bring us to item number 4.
4A, GWP Commission elections, President and Secretary.
So our procedure this time around calls for us to open nominations and then take a roll call vote first for Secretary, and then we will open up nominations for President and take a roll call vote for that as well. So I want to open up the floor for nominations for the Secretary at this time.
I would make a nomination for Commissioner Lal to serve as Secretary.
Is there a second for that nomination?
I second that.
Okay. With a motion and a second for Commissioner Lal, I believe now would be a good time to take a roll call vote. So, Madam Clerk, if you would call the roll, please.
Commissioner Evanesian?
Yes, positive.
Commissioner Camargo?
Yes.
Commissioner Lau?
Yes.
Commissioner Chan?
Yes.
President Hale?
Aye. With a unanimous vote, Commissioner Lal, you are now the Secretary-elect of the Commission. So at this time, it would be appropriate to open up nominations for President of the Commission. So is there a motion to nominate a President for our Water and Power Commission?
I nominate Commissioner Camargo
And is there a
for
second?
the President post.
I second.
Seconded by Commissioner Avanesian. So Madam Clerk, if you would, please open up the roll.
Commissioner Evanesian?
Yes.
Commissioner Camargo?
Yes.
Commissioner Lau?
Yes.
Commissioner Chan?
Yes.
President Hale?
Aye. And with the unanimous roll call, the presidency now goes to Commissioner Camargo. So congratulations to both of you. I think now would be an appropriate time to hand over the gavel and switch seats. So we will declare a brief recess of about a minute and go ahead and take care of that.
Okay, very good. Thank you, sir. I want my candy back.
All right, that's fair.
It was a gift. Exactly. Okay, very good. Thank you for that. So appreciate we have very strong commission, and I think we're in good shape with Commissioner Lal serving as secretary moving forward, and look forward to working with all of you as we press on. So I'd like to jump back into the agenda then. So then, Madam Clerk, if we can move to Section 5.
5, reports. 5A, water conservation update.
President Camargo and members of the Commission, my name is Michael DeGhetto, Chief Assistant General Manager for Water, and I'm going to give a my monthly update on water conservation. So since May of 2015, GWP's customers have saved 2.6 billion gallons of water. And currently watering days are set 3 times per week, and this is until February of 2017. And the drought charge is currently lifted again until the end of February 2017. And GWP staff are going to make a report to the council prior to the end of February, because that's when the current watering days and the drought charge ends. And looking at the graph, so in September, we saved, as a city, 20% compared to 2013. And our cumulative reduction since May, since we went into mandatory, is 21% overall. And as we've talked about before, last year, I would anticipate that some of those savings are going to start dropping off again in November, December, January, and February, because it's compared to a time period when there's less use anyway during the winter. And again, so we're in phase 2, 3 days a week, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, no more than 10 minutes at each station. And then our normal, just no water waste policy is always in effect, regardless of which phase that we're in. And you can water before 9 a.m. or after 6 p.m. And then again, it's always, if you want to see what you can do to help save. We had a class in October. There's another class coming up on November 19th. And on our website, it has a link and talks more about where the landscape classes are. And then even like if you're a landlord, say in an apartment or a condo, you can get conservation information just about that sort of facility. And again, at the website, you can see if we have rebates for efficient appliances, and then information about water-wise landscaping, and then any kind of programs we have for businesses as well. And to see what kind of plants might look good and use less water. We also have information on that on the water-wise gardening. That's my update for this month.
Good. Any comments or questions? Very good.
I do have just a comment. It's kind of a comment and a question at the same time. I do see that certainly in my neighborhood there are more frequent waterings, which is fine because we've added a day. But I love this graphic with the wet days and dry days. And I know that sometimes it was printed on the back of our bills. And I think it's so easy to read. Even if you don't speak English, if you look at it, it tells you exactly what you need to know. And I think, GWP has done such a laudable job in getting the message out about the drought and the need to really change all of our practices regarding the use of water. But we need to make sure that as we relax the rules and relax the watering schedule a little bit, just to allow this one extra day, that people then don't, the boulder doesn't roll too far back down the hill. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do.
And we don't go too far, and people think, oh yeah, the drought's over, and it's raining up in Northern California, so everything's okay, and maybe I can, I'll start watering on Sunday too.
And that's a good point. I know there was like some recent news coverage about some other agencies that haven't been conserving as much as previously, but there's two parts to that. One was 2015 was literally an emergency.
Right.
So everyone did a great job at responding to that. It's not as much of an emergency situation right now, but despite that, here in Glendale, everyone's still done a great job. So, And I think that'll be more of the updates that come out in February after the state sets some of their new rules and guidelines. We'll provide an update on that as well, which will influence if we stay at 3 days a week, go to 2 days a week, whatever happens at that point. So.
Right. And even though there isn't a turf removal rebate anymore, what will you be doing to encourage people to be more responsible about landscaping? I mean, I see the landscaping classes, but are you going to be endeavoring, any new initiatives, or is it going to be the initiatives that were started during the drought that are going to continue forward?
Those initiatives are going to continue forward, and I really think the main way to get folks to change is to see other people with drought-tolerant landscapes. It's kind of that thing where if you see other people doing it, then you can get used to it, and you can kind of see that. You have plants that have a lot more color than just a green lawn, right? So, and based on the fact that our savings are still where they're at, it seems like a lot of people in Glendale have made a permanent switch because we really haven't had those peaks in the summer that we're used to on consumption. So.
Right. Is Glendale, are we mapping at all the number of turf removal projects undertaken for rebates in the city, or does MWD know sort of the overall square footage in their service area? I mean, is it global? Is there any way that we could know just in our city?
I can ask Met and find out if they have it broken out that way.
It takes some effort, but they'll do it for us if we ask. We've asked in the past, and we had gotten, at least on the first go-round, some numbers. But they'll generally first give you the whole Metropolitan Water District program numbers.
Right.
In, millions of square feet. But I think we can get them to break it down for us, especially now that the program has pretty much been...
it's completed.
They sunsetted it, so we'll certainly try to get that information.
I think I can ask the conservation folks about that and see if they have a number just for our area. And of course, from Met's perspective, I mean, even if someone in Orange County takes out turf, that still helps us in Glendale because it's a regional system. So
yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
Very good. Thank you. Next item, please.
5B, strategic plan update.
Hello, President Camargo, members of the Commission, April Fitzpatrick, Assistant General Manager, GWP. I'm here today to present you with an update of our existing strategic plan, but before I start, I wanted to share with you all that we are going to reconvene the committee as a whole for the strategic plan because we are currently 3 years into a 5-year plan. We think there's been enough organizational changes and shifting, and it's time to get together as a group and look at what we have and see if we can review and update. In a few months, we should come back with you with a slightly revised plan. As you know from the past, we have a scorecard method of reporting to you how we're doing. Green meaning ahead of schedule, yellow right on target, and red behind schedule. There are 6 sections to our strategic plan, with the first one being customer engagement and satisfaction. Historically, we've been consistently above the average for our utility with this whole area in yellow. We anticipate in the next few weeks, maybe a month, our survey results, so we'll be able to determine if in that last box we are green, yellow, or red. We just don't have the facts right now, even though the date states we should have had something by June 2016. So next time you hear back from me, you should have something different. The second part of this area is we're constantly doing technological improvements to our customer portals to improve our customer satisfaction, those being O-Power, WaterSmart, and that mobile app. And it appears that many people do appreciate the additional usage data and the behavioral awareness. The next section is organization and structure. As a whole, we're balancing the utilities organization and structure in line with the rest of the city, as well as other utilities. It can be challenging at times with the workforce constantly changing what other utilities are doing and trying to bring in the broader perspective to employees. One great improvement in this area is, as I mentioned previously, is we revamped our employee evaluations, where not only we put the individual's personal goals, but the department's strategic goals are included as well, so they could fold that into their thought process when they're performing day to day. Lastly, in this area, we've recently, from a safety perspective, hired a new safety specialist who is really going to help us enhance our safety programs for the utility. He comes with a vast amount of experience, and we're happy to have him on board. Grid systems, grid operations and systems. This includes both electric and water, and we're doing outstanding in this area. If you look at the PowerPoint, you'll see it's predominantly green. So kudos to Ramon and Mike in these areas where our industry average is much higher than the goal set forth, and even with that goal, we're doing better. And lastly, in this area, we're moving towards the fully automating our feeders by 2020. We have plenty of time. That's the only area you see that's all yellow, and of course we're hopeful here. The fourth section is technology and business systems. We're on track here to meet all of the goals in this area, with many technology projects being completed. Our big goal in this area for this year is at that on the very bottom where it says security. We anticipate completing a cybersecurity audit citywide, and this is a joint venture with our IT department, in hopes to issue an RFP and select a vendor this year. This next section of strategic goals is power, water, and facilities. There's 3 areas here, with one in particular I'd like to note is the 5.2, where we hope to repower Grayson by 2020. Tomorrow night we are seeking council's approval and another step forward in obtaining their approval to proceed with the limited notice. And this will help us with more detailed design, modeling, and permitting, as well as allow us to move forward, hopefully, with the next phase of CEQA docs. The last item in this section is green. I mentioned it last time. We were going to evaluate whether or not we could have a second connection to our transmission grid. We marked it green because we have made the determination that it is not a feasible option. And the last section of our strategic goals is financial performance and business development. 2 notable items here is, as you saw last commission meeting, Craig presented our fiber plan, and we have funding this year to move forward. It's in our budget for $1.7 million, and things are moving along. And lastly, the EV fast chargers being installed throughout the city. I don't know if you noticed when you drove in this afternoon, you saw the trucks and the installers putting the fast chargers off on the corner, and they removed the blinks that were there previously. We're also looking at the transportation center, our city-owned public parking lots, as well as potentially Brand Boulevard or Brand Park to do another install. So this concludes my update of the presentation. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask.
Questions from the commission?
I do have one question.
Sure.
First of all, thank you very much for the detailed presentation, and congratulations on all of the green and yellow boxes. Under Section 3, grid operations, it's all green there. I'm just trying to understand.
Sure.
So it says reduce the number of preventable outages to less than 25 per year by June. It's 12-month rolling total. So each number in the box here, that's a rolling 12-month total?
In this particular case, it has remained 2 for the entire year.
Okay.
We have to say, though, in October we did have, I'm not quite sure if it's 1 or 2, but you'll see an increase in that number for the following quarter.
So it's not every quarter you had 2?
No,
just the last 12 months?
Yes.
Reporting that?
On that particular item, yes, it's 2
Okay.
for the whole year.
Okay. And then the next one, 3.2, reduce the number of unscheduled water outages. Is that the same thing?
I believe this one, I have to look to Mike. Is it a cumulative total? I know we tried to redefine the rolling total.
Yeah, it's the rolling 12 months. So if you add up, say, the prior 12 months to December 15, it was 8. Prior 12 months to March, it was 17.
So some roll off, and
Yeah,
so
some
that's
roll
why, so it's 8, 17,
It's
18, and 17.
Yeah, so it's a 12-month
It's
total.
cumulative.
But it's rolling 12 months.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
One more question for
Yes.
you. On item number in section 4, so technology and business systems, on 4.3, so you talked about cybersecurity audit. Can you speak to what is the level to which your intent with cybersecurity is governed by regulation as opposed to the discretion of staff?
A lot of it, Mr. President, is dictated by either Homeland Security, APPA sets guidelines, but it also is important for us to be consistent with what the city's philosophy is, which is why we are coordinating this with our ISD department and rolling that into the overall city cybersecurity plan as well, because the two are interconnected. So we have both. We have our own internal concerns that we want to adhere to, and we have outside regulatory bodies and outside agencies that are not necessarily regulators, but are providing professional advice on what we might be doing to help improve our cybersecurity. So it's a combination. And right now we're just kind of accumulating the information. We're fortunate enough to be able to get assistance from Homeland Security through the police department. And so they are in the course of putting together a plan as well. They're not going to do a real detailed cybersecurity. They're just going to point out some basic information that we can then build on. So a lot of different eyes looking at this.
Very good. Okay, I appreciate that.
And there's physical too. We'll be looking at physical security along with the cybersecurity. So Homeland Security is focusing more on physical security, and we're really interested in seeing what they come back with.
Right. Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
I do have one more question.
All right, Ms. Fitzpatrick.
Oh, I'm sorry. Were you done?
She's coming.
I'm here.
Okay.
Go
Do
ahead.
you have another question?
Strategic Goal 6.3. It says at the end here, completed EV chargers and fiber business plan. What are the next steps with that?
Well, the EV chargers will continue. So we've got 10 budgeted this year. We'll put 10 budget for next year. And then we're hoping and we're trying to reach out as much as we can to EV owners to try to get input from them on where they'd like to see these put. I mean, we can sit all day and put them in areas that we think are good locations, and obviously parking structures and transportation centers and those places are good. But we'd sure love to hear back, especially if we get into more street placement. You know, where are areas? We're going to put one on Brand Boulevard. We're going to put one on Honolulu and Montrose because we have a pretty good idea there's at least some level of use there. But that's just part of our overall marketing effort. So we're reaching out and getting those folks. So that's going to be ongoing because as you may be aware, especially through recently passed SB 350 and the whole electrification of the transportation system, there is a sense upon the utilities, because they're easier to regulate, is build them and they will come. So there's a great sense that there is enough interest in buying EVs on the part of the consumer. Now it's a matter of having the infrastructure in place to ensure that they have ample charging capability wherever they may go. So we're going to be continuing to look at that. And we've got a nice joint action contract with SCAPA for the placement of these, and that's what we're building off of, so it's a really good price. Right now, we can't go fast enough. You know, I mean, it's only the permitting process and things like that, necessary regulatory processes that we're going through that are holding us back, because we'd love to get more of these in. With regards to the fiber plan, as you saw our update to you last meeting. So we're in a first phase of 2 phases, and so this will be putting the infrastructure and the backbone of the system together, including the connection to One Wilshire. And then from there, the following year, we'll roll out the actual rate schedule and begin to market this to those that are interested. So within 2 years, the fiber plan will be rolled out. We'll have enhanced the infrastructure, created the redundancy we need, made our One Wilshire connection, and we'll build from there.
Okay. And with the EV chargers, you were saying you're trying to seek customer suggestions and comments, and how are you doing that?
I'm doing it when I make presentations. We're trying to do it through our webpage. We've done it there.
Okay.
And what we're trying to do is to make it more focused. There's a way we can get actual registration information that we could direct contact somebody and say, to the point that that's all okay, is reach out and say, we understand that you've got a EV registered in the state of California and that this is your registration address. We in the city of Glendale would love to know where you'd like to see those chargers placed.
What about at point of sale? I mean, we have so many auto dealerships.
We've already contacted them.
Yeah.
So, if anytime they can get that kind of information. And we have several dealerships that produce and sell EVs. So, to the extent that we can reach out to them as well. And maybe even we talked about putting them in front of dealerships. Maybe that's a place to go. You know, is your vehicle going to be here for an extended period of time? Maybe we can help you by putting a charger, out on that end of brand, for instance. So we'll keep at it. We've had pretty fair input from a small number of people. Most are liking banks of chargers in public parking structures. That seems to be very popular. So we'll continue to reach out where we can.
So what's the charge for charging?
I don't know. Craig, do you have the... We obviously pay a higher rate on the fast charge. The fast charge is the one we have out right now in the lot. So you go down to the tier 2s, and they're a little bit less expensive. The issue right now with this is, though, and Craig can give you what the current charges are for that. This is under review internally and part of our next cost of service analysis for in 2 years. We'll come back, or maybe sooner, with a more specific EV rate schedule. Ours is a little bit, right now it's not as sophisticated as others, but as we get a chance to hone down, especially, and we're looking at total distributed generation issues and behind the meter. So whether it's battery storage or solar panels on houses, is trying to find a rate structure that best captures the benefits for the consumer, but also protects the interest of the utility in some of those cases. So Craig, if you have the current cost structure for...
Well, you're taxing, Craig Keenan, Business Transformation and Marketing Administrator. Memory serves me right, it's like 23 cents or thereabouts for level 2 charging and 32 cents for the fast charger. It's on our website, though, and it was approved by City Council.
And it's per minute or for the amount of charge, or, I mean...
Per kilowatt hour.
Okay.
So the DC fast charger is more because you have a demand charge plus an energy charge because it charges your car in 15, 20 minutes. The other, it's just like plugging in your washing machine or something. It charges faster than the 110, but it still takes 3 or 4 hours on a usual charge.
So, Mr. Keenan, for a complete charge, what do you pay?
Well, I haven't got to use ours yet. It's just getting it installed. I used to pay 49 cents a kilowatt hour on the Blink charger. So
that was a privately owned one that we brought in, and they got to set their own rate. So you can see that we've significantly reduced that, at least halved it, by having our own chargers.
Yes.
So, Mr. Keenan is a EV owner and a loyal EV owner.
And I can't wait for these chargers.
So are level 2 chargers part of the installation that you guys are doing right now?
Well,
okay,
pretty much that's the level 2.
Level 2, yes.
Yeah.
We have the fast charger, but that was help. We got grant money to help with that.
Okay.
And,
We'll look at those strategically, but at least for what I indicated that we had planned for this year and probably for next is level 2s.
Yeah, I drive a Chevy Volt, so it's the plug-in hybrid, and I need level 2. The fast chargers are not any use for plug-in hybrids.
Right. That's why we're going to be putting at least one level 2 charger next to the fast charger in that parking lot. And then we'll start putting some in the parking garage right next door here.
So one way to kind of help adoption of some of these things is to list them on the PlugShare website and the app. So I don't know if that's something that the utility is doing and giving that kind of...
Our mobile app has
good
information.
Absolutely.
Very good. Mr. Keenan, Ms. Fitzpatrick.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Madam Clerk, next item, please.
5C, customer service update.
Good afternoon, President Camargo and members of Commission. I'm Tammy Valier, Customer Services Administrator. I'm here today to provide you with the quarterly customer service update. The total number of contacts decreased 1% last year overall, and we're projecting a 2% decrease again this year. Contacts include the telephone, the front counter, cashiering, both email and traditional written correspondence, as well as calls completed in the interactive voice response system. There's a few reasons for the slight decrease, and the first would be that customers are more familiar with our water restrictions. 2014, we moved to Phase 2, and then in 2015, Phase 3, so we were kind of inundated with water conservation, water waster reports, questions about the drought charge, and so forth. That seems to have settled down a little bit, so we are seeing a decrease again. The second is that the CSURs are really pushing the customers to those customer portals such as OPower and WaterSmart, and then the mobile app as well. So customers that receive a high bill, they may be reviewing their own usage and kind of seeing, what that the charges are valid and when they use the water, when they use the electric. And so instead of calling us and having us figure it out, a lot of them are doing that on their own. And we think we'll see a decrease, a downward trend to continue just as customers become more and more familiar and comfortable with that data that's online for them. If we look at the contacts by communication channel, the only increase that we had actually this year was in email by 10%, and the written correspondence went down by 10%, so it really is just a wash. The telephone went down about 1.5%, and the payment counter just 2%. We'd like to one of our targets is to have the cashiering station go down 5% each year, but we haven't quite yet been able to meet that. The number of abandoned calls has significantly improved, although we're not quite meeting our target of less than 4%. We have decreased the abandoned calls by nearly 45% from last year. Of those customers that chose to hang up before speaking with a customer service rep, 50% abandoned the call within 90 seconds, and then the other 50%, the average hang-up time was at 2 minutes and 29 seconds. The average speed of answer was 1 minute and 28 seconds, and I think I've spoken to this before where for a long time our service level goal was to answer 80% of our calls in 30 seconds. And the new first quartile for utilities is to answer 70% in 30 seconds. And I think a lot of it has to do with the same thing that we're doing, is that we're taking more time on the phones with the customers. We're at 62% right now, so we have a little bit of work to do. We just recently updated our contingency plans, so we have a more formal process where our back office desk functions are prioritized as to which customer service reps will stop their back office work and help assist on the phone. So we're hoping that by the end of the year we could be at that 70%. The call handle time is the time the customer service rep is actually on the phone with the customer, which is about 4 minutes and 3 seconds, and then the rest of the time is the time that they're spending documenting the phone calls. We do have a little bit of time where we are sending
we call them IEE reports, where a customer doesn't want to download their hourly data themselves, so they'd like us to email it to them. So all of that takes some time in between phone calls. But the customer service reps are more and more comfortable with the information and working with the data, so we are seeing an improvement in the length of that time. The next few slides are related to billing. And of course, it'd be ideal if we could send all of our bills out 100% of the time on time, but that's just not really a reality. We always are going to have some of the accounts that fall out because of higher load usage, where we need to have a manual review. But our regular target would be to have accounts with normal usage billed within 2 days of the read date, and then those abnormal, or what we call exceptions, that those bills investigated and mailed within 10 days of the read date. This is our actual performance. We're currently billing nearly 95% of all bills on time. We have established an internal target of 96%. As far as accounts that fell out of the normal billing process, we're meeting our goal of mailing within 10 days 98% of the time. So in order to meet the target of 96% of our bills mailed on time, we need to reduce the exceptions. So we're currently at a little over 5%. It's actually closer to 6%. We want to get down to 4%. Some of the things that cause those exceptions to go up is all of our PV bills are manual, and so those hit the exceptions. All of the vacant units that have usage on them, those hit the exceptions. And first and final bills, those hit the exceptions. So we're working with our CIS vendor to try and eliminate those from the exceptions. And if we can do that by the end of the year, I think we could actually meet our target.
Can you define PV bills?
Photovoltaic, solar.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Because I think I'm getting one of those bills, and I notice I get this letter that is very neatly and clearly printed out how much I've used, how much, and I did kind of wonder, so now I know.
Yeah, it's a process.
So it's labor, is what you're saying is labor intensive.
It is.
Okay, that's good to know.
And then finally, our bill accuracy. This is really essential in providing good customer service. This measures error-driven adjustments that are made after the bill is issued, and we've maintained a 99.9% accuracy rate for the past 3 years, which is first quartile, so we're doing very good in this area. That completes my presentation.
Very good. Questions or comments? Any further questions or comments? Very good.
How many staff? I'm sorry, how many staff do you have?
In the call center, I believe we have 14. Mm-hmm. That's actually call center, payment processing, and collections. Mm-hmm. And then in billing, we have about the same, which is billing actually is billing and field services.
Okay. Thanks.
Next item, please.
5D, Risk Management, Risk Assessment Report.
Hi, good afternoon. Ramon Bueg, Chief Assistant General Manager for Electric and Supply. So in our risk management policy, we've had one policy that's been written up since 2012, I believe, and we have recently updated that and presented that to the City Council on October 4th. So on October 4th, we revised the policy. Not too many changes from the old policy, but we included, what we did was we separated the trading authority policy. And within that, we also broke down and identified what other procedures and processes we need to define to really define what our risk management portfolio is. And the main objective of that is to prevent or mitigate losses and also allow us to prioritize what's critical resources for us to meet our load. So the next step, having approved that, is we're going to release that information for us to those that have stake in it to sign off and say that we have received it, acknowledge it. And then we are now in the process of developing several policies and procedures, including the credit policy. We're going to do the trading authority policy, a sanction policy, and the one that we're working on currently that's pretty close is the hedge policy. And we're also looking at the business continuity, which we've never addressed before, from the risk management or energy trading. We have that for operational needs, but not for energy trading. So those are the things that we've identified that we need to do in order to have a complete package, if you will. And once we have that, I think President Camargo asked about cybersecurity. That's also being addressed, but part of what Mr. Cern explained as part of the city policy. So once we have all this in place, we'll be presenting to you what that encompasses, so it will be a complete package. So, but the main step, which is to get the city council to approve the two main policy, we're done, and the rest of it will fall under that and under the general manager's approval moving forward. So, any questions?
I might add to that this has all been the result, although we look at the energy risk management policy on an annual basis through the committee. A lot of these changes that Mr. Abweg's referring to are the result of an overall risk management assessment that we had done of the trading operation. So we hired the firm ACES, who's a firm that actually does work for us. They do trading for us, off-hours trading primarily. We wanted them to come in. They have a risk management function, and we asked them to do an overview of all of our operations, from our credit policies, as Ramon indicated, to our trading authorities, to just put things in order, where council was in relation to the city manager and the GM, what we call, the front office, mid office, back office, which we really have not had a true breakdown of that in the past. We've been without a risk manager. Basically, we had a finance operation, but not a true risk manager. So that's something that we also used ACES for. We retained one of their risk management employees to provide us with that function. So that's an ongoing process that this individual does. We're going to evaluate in the future, is that the best way for us to handle risk management, or should we bring somebody in-house? I can tell you we tried on the in-house. It didn't work very well. That's a high-dollar position. So this has so far worked pretty well for us. But again, this is a complete internal look at our trading policies, operations, and getting their feedback, and then pushing it through the committee and having the committee make the decisions on most of the things, but then there's a few things that need to go to council as well. So it's probably been over a year that we've been at this, and we've got a little bit more to go, as you heard from Mr. Abweg. So it's, I think, a well worthwhile endeavor, and one that will probably in some manner keep as regular. To this level, I don't know that we would do it on anywhere annual basis, but keeping it at some increment where we go back and take a real deep internal look and have somebody with outside eyes looking at it for us too, because sometimes you can miss those things when you get too close to it. And I don't think you can ever be too cautious, too careful, and in your oversight of this kind of an operation, because this is a high dollar operation. It's where a lot of our money, it's where most of our money in the budget goes, to the purchase of power and gas. So we want to make sure that we stay on top of that.
The third party that you have serving as your sort of external risk manager, how much of a allocation is that? Is it a full-time job for this individual, half-time job?
The individual is still doing some work. Their headquarters are in Indianapolis, so he spends a lot of time there, but he's still doing our work. He comes out and spends a week a month at least with us, and that's been very, very productive, from fine-tuning policy to running the committee meetings. That's now his responsibility to run those meetings. So again, this is something new to us. So we're going to see what that balance is. Is it better to have somebody 2 weeks? Is it better to have somebody full time? We're going to find out. But right now, this seems to be working well for us.
Very good. And then, Mr. Abweg, for you, you mentioned at some point that once you have this program complete, you'll come back to this commission. When do you expect that to be?
We're several months away, probably at least 6 months looking in, because we're just starting on some of the procedures that we started. So we have a standing, although the risk manager is not here every week or every day, we have a standing conference call once a week to go over where the progress is. And so we're doing an update on a regular basis to see where we are. And basically doing a pulse check.
Very good.
Excuse me, I have a question. Can you please explain, to understand better, give one example that how this risk management reduce risk?
Sure. I think one of the examples that, or policy that I mentioned is perhaps the best example is what we call the hedging policy. If I may point out, there will be times that we'll be short, let's say in energy, we have a high weather than anticipated, and we did not schedule resources for the time. But if we have a good hedge policy, instead of buying on the market at the time when everything's so high, we'd have set up a ceiling that allows us to purchase to mitigate the losses or the higher cost that we would have paid had we not implemented a policy. So the way I look at it is it really mitigates our exposure to what I call blowouts. When we didn't, or if we lose a transmission line, we would have a resource available to us to replace that energy at a lesser price than what it would have cost us.
Just to add to that, one of the first questions you have to answer when you start this process is, what is our risk tolerance? So you ask about how did we reduce risk. In some cases, we may have refined it so that we're in a better position. But of course, ours is very low, and that's the way it should be, I think. But that's one of the key questions. You have to come out of the gate and say, what's your risk tolerance? What are you willing to tolerate with regards to risk? Once you establish that, then we can build from there. And as Ramon indicated, and then everything flows from there, the credit policy, the trading authority numbers, to what extent that the policymaking body that you'll go for decisions versus the city manager, for instance. It's been like I said, a very worthwhile endeavor.
Okay.
Very good. Thank you for the update.
Thank you.
Next item, please.
6, oral communications. Discussion is limited to the items not part of this agenda. Each speaker is allowed 5 minutes. Commissioners may question or respond to the speaker, but there will be no debate or decision. The general manager may refer the matter to the appropriate staff for investigation and report.
Very good. Madam Clerk, I don't have any comment cards here at my station. Do you have any at yours?
I do not.
Okay, very good. So let's move on then to the next item.
7, agenda forecast.
So you've set forth just more than the next year, which is very helpful to see. I mean, the one thing based on this most recent discussion, it seems like it would be helpful to have a placeholder in here, Mr. Zern, with your concurrence, perhaps in the April-May timeframe to consider the right time for a risk management update.
Yeah, and I'll add that once I have a better handle on when that'll be. So we aren't quite there yet. We're guessing because we aren't rushing it, to be quite honest with you. I'm in no rush. I'd rather get it done right. So once we're kind of seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, I'll add it as a tentative date so that we're a little bit more in tune. I'd hate to just keep moving it.
Okay, I appreciate that.
And I think, Mr. President, members of the commission, and I'll look for a nod from Ramon, we're going to have the Southern California Gas Company here next month for the Aliso Canyon update, so we'll hear it from the horse's mouth with regards to, as you know, they have requested permission to begin re-injecting, so it seemed like a good time. Plus, we're on the cusp of winter, believe it or not. It's hard to tell from the temperatures this week, but we are entering the winter season, so we can get an update from her on that as well.
And that request for re-injecting was just for, I seem to recall, a portion of the total number of wells.
It's the wells that have passed the double inspection. I think it's a two-phased inspection. You had to pass the first and the second, so it's only those wells that have passed both. Yeah, that's my understanding, Mr. Corvo.
So any other suggestions for agenda items?
Yes, I do have a suggestion. I know earlier we were talking about the EV chargers and the fiber business plan, and I understand it may only be maybe once a year kind of an update, or maybe every 6 months if there's enough progress. So if we can maybe schedule something like that in the future, I think it'd be a good idea if the rest of the commissioners agree.
So on the fiber, I'll give you updates on those. So we'll have our first year progress, and then when we come back in the budget, you'll see that second year in the budget, and it's a good time to talk about it. The EV chargers, you just want an update on where we put them?
Or where
I can give
we're
you a
at.
list of where we plan to put them. It'll just be a matter of getting all the proper permits.
Yeah.
So I can send you guys all that right now of where
Okay.
our first, Mr. Keenan snuck out, where our first 10 are proposed, and then where our tentatively proposed for the next 10. Seeing as, unless we can get some real good feedback from users that they'd rather have them in another place. So we'll send that all out to everybody via
That'd be
email. And then to the best, I think just casually in comments, I could update you if we were having, any issues. But
Any other changes? Mhm.
yeah.
So how you select that places to put that?
We've just done it based on where we think that people would most want them. So we picked primarily parking structures. So we've got the Civic Center first. We've got all of our downtown structures on the waiting list. The Zarian Transportation Center, because we figure that might be a good place as people come to use the train and park there. There might be some need for it there. And then we have a couple of street charging locations, and that's really kind of where you try to fill people out more than anything, because you have to sort of work that balance with the merchants. You're taking a parking space away because it's not a true parking space. It's supposed to be dedicated to charging, and if it isn't getting enough business, I'm sure we'll hear about it. So we're taking those one at a time, and then from there, like I had indicated, we may put some down on South Brand where the car dealers are. And then from there, we're kind of open to suggestions. We'll continue to keep plugging away and putting them in structures and here at the Civic Center.
And you mentioned with the fiber plan, we'll see it when it's time for the budget.
We'll give you a phase 1 update, and then that'll sort of segue right into phase 2, which will be included in our budget and include, hopefully we'll have, by the time our budget presentation is ready, we'll have the rate schedule and the outreach plan for that.
I don't see the budget put in here. What month are you thinking of?
We usually try
April?
to base it on what the city's schedule is, and so that's not exactly been released yet. So,
Okay.
But yeah, generally April, May, probably closer to May.
That's what I thought, yeah. Okay. So in May, then, we will be seeing the Phase 2 update, right? Most likely?
Phase 2 hopefully we'll have it all, the schedule and everything put together, but that is part of what our budget process was going to be.
Okay.
And then we can update you on phase 1 at that point. I don't see any reason why we wouldn't be done and completed with everything that was in phase 1.
So Phase 1 and 2?
You'll have an update on phase 1 and 2, yes.
Yeah, in May. Okay. Thank you.
Are we expecting a presentation about the integrated resource plan time?
The
IRP?
We can. That was probably before your time that we did it, because we've made a presentation to the commission on the IRP.
And how often is it updated? It's just ongoing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't see any reason to update it at this point.
Right.
We'll see how the overall Grayson project goes, and then from there we may need to upgrade it if that happens to change.
I couldn't remember it was every couple of years or it's.
We look at it when there's big changes or that we need to make big changes. So right now it's holding where it was originally.
Okay.
And we are using that still as a guide, and there's no reason that we see to change it at this point.
Okay.
But if several of the commissioners have not seen it, I think it may be a good idea to.
We made that presentation to y'all. I think you were.
Have you seen it?
I think I saw it. I just
Yeah,
wasn't sure
I know I've seen it because I've been here for a while.
I wasn't sure how often it was updated.
Oh, okay.
So.
If not, we'd be happy to go over it with you.
I don't think it's urgent.
I'd be interested in a Grayson update anyway, just to know kind of what's happening on.
I think that was one thing I was noticing here that we need. Let's see. I will fit a Grayson update in here somewhere within the next couple months, at least.
Okay.
Sooner rather than later, of course.
That would be preferable, yeah.
Mr. Zern, also earlier in this meeting, we talked, there was reference to a cost of service analysis being done sometime in the next, I guess, couple of years here. Can you speak to that?
Cost of service analysis is a required document when we're formulating a new rate schedule. So that all gets brought to you as a single package when we bring the proposed rate schedule to you.
Okay.
So you'll see that. You'll see the cost of service analysis, how that played out, how we plugged the numbers in for the rates to get where we wanted to be, and what we needed to do, what the overall rate will be. So you see that as a full package.
Will there be a separate COSA for the EV rates? Because I think that was the context of the conversation that we were having.
It will be included in the COSA, but we're doing some additional side work just to gather information on distributed generation in totality. And EV is one of those, but we will have that included. That's one of the key issues in the new COSA, along with whatever the rate schedule we need to cover our ongoing costs. Will be those more specialized type rates.
Got it.
But that'll definitely be there. So there's a water COSA as well. So we have two COSAs going out. They're going out. They're out. Well, the water's out on the street. The electric is almost ready, Mr. Aboyeg. Yes.
Another draft.
So with both, as you know, the two rate schedules end at the same time. So there's 2 years left on each. So we want to be prepared to come back in plenty of time to consider a new rate schedule, whatever that rate schedule may be. And we need that COSA as the fundamental, foundational document.
And when you say out on the street, that is what is that, an RFP in order to select
Correct.
a third-party vendor to perform the analysis?
That is correct. The RFP is out for water, and the RFP for electrical will hopefully be out by the end of this week.
Very good. Any other comments regarding the agenda forecast?
Just something that has been on my mind recently, and I'm not sure if this is something that we can address as a commission, but it's something that I've been thinking about and wanted to share with all of you. And that is that we've had a lot of new construction in our downtown area. We've had discussions with Mr. DeGhetto about purple pipe and other water-saving features, building requirements, building codes that made sure that these dwellings were as sustainable as possible. And one thing that I'm very curious about is what is the intersection between the building codes as they are in the city of Glendale and how that affects actual consumption when it comes to people becoming utility customers, entering new dwellings, and how much are they actually using? And are our building codes, basically what I'm curious about is, are our building codes tough enough? Are they doing the job that they're supposed to do to make sure that the new dwellings that are being built are as sustainable as we wanted them to be when the codes were created? So that's something that I've been thinking about. I'm not sure this is the forum for it, but it's been on my mind.
The codes are much more developed and stringent on the energy side than they are on the water side. Mm-hmm. Even now, the use of recycled water is very, very limited because of the nature of the water. You can't bring it inside a house. You can't have it in anything that's near food handling or beverage handling or beverage and food consumption. So I think the building code with regards to water is doing the best that it can. Can it be better? Well, you have pretty tough energy codes when it comes to putting in lighting and electrical and those kind of things. I think the industry in general, when I say the industry, the supporting industry, so manufacturers of appliances and manufacturers of toilets and sinks and faucets have continued to make improvements to help in that reduction. And certainly, for most of our recent development, it's been downtown. And we just have seen a lot of the use of more efficient appliances, a lot less landscaping, and as many places as possible trying to use recycled water for the landscaping, or at least preparing themselves when recycled distribution is capable. We're capable of that. Sometimes it's a case of we don't have the infrastructure in place to serve that. So I think, the building codes, and it's interesting because I mentioned earlier we're sort of struggling a little bit on the EV chargers. So, sometimes when one state agency makes a thou shalt, they forget there might be another state agency that has a thou shalt that has a conflict.
Right.
So
thou shalt not.
It's like
right.
Build EV chargers, and all of a sudden the building code says maybe not. Or the ADA and handicap codes have come into play. So we're working together on those. So we'll continue to look at ways. And as Mike indicated in his conservation report, we absolutely haven't heard the end of conservation issues. And so I think you're going to see this whole dynamic, the governor's office versus some of the departments that regulate water, whether it's the water board or drinking water, Department of Drinking Water. It's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out over the next year for sure. I think the legislation is going to be hot this year with water conservation issues,
Right.
and some pretty beefy electrical issues as well. So we should have an active session for sure.
Right. I think the things that I've noticed are, for instance, that the trees that were planted around some of the multifamily dwellings downtown, that many times the trees were these little teeny tiny, twigs. And if they had planted, for instance, larger trees, if they had required larger trees, they would have provided more shade and instantly had a more cooling effect, rather than having to wait 10, 15 years for a tree to get large enough. The fact that a lot of the buildings are built right on the sidewalk, so that when there's water runoff, it goes straight off the side of the building and down into the storm drains. There's no landscaping there that would capture that water.
Shouldn't be any runoff, so we got to look at that.
Right,
Yeah,
but
it should catch the landscape. On the trees, it's always an interesting dilemma. We have it ourselves. There are many people, many arborists who believe you plant them at a younger, and because their growth, especially in parkway settings, which is very, very difficult. A difficult setting to put a tree. In fact, I think we would all agree, most arborists would agree, it isn't where you should plant a tree. They should be planted out in the field, in a beautiful park or something like that. We, in the city of Glendale, try to get our palette to a point that we have the trees that can withstand that environment, where, it's not only being in a small setting, it's also, you're right on traffic. You got trash trucks and other trucks coming by that, as a tree gets more mature, starts to, do the trimming themselves. So, trees that take less water, so that the initial establishment, then you can back off on the watering, and we use recycled water to water our trees. So when those street trees go in, I can tell you from my own experiences as a director of public works, taking a tree that's just even the next size up is a whole heck of a lot. It's not a dollar thing for the actual tree, but the hole has to be so much bigger in order to make it survive. It's better to take the smaller tree in that environment and grow it. And usually in our palette, you take trees that have a pretty short, at least what we call their initial growth period. Okay. So that they'll double their size in a year, and then a year after that, so that you try to get them up in there as big as possible when you can. But planting more mature trees, sometimes even the parkway setting, you have to let the tree get used to the setting instead of trying to make the setting right for the tree. So, but any of those other things that we see, the runoff especially, because we're trying to make sure that we capture as much runoff as possible. You see the work that's going down Harvard. I don't know if anybody's noticed that work that goes from Brand all the way to Glendale Avenue, but you'll see huge excavations. Those are all to collect. Those are all infiltration basins. So those are going to collect stormwater and infiltrate it down and not convey it to the LA River, for instance. So as often as we can take advantage of those situations, we do. But we'll certainly take a look, and if we've got runoff, we shouldn't have that at all.
Yeah, I think I don't want to get too hung up and press on that particular issue. I think I'm just very curious about that intersection between what are we requiring of the building in our city, and how does that affect the work that we're doing, providing electricity for consumers, providing water, and how does that affect consumption, real-time consumption? That's my area of curiosity. If it's something that we can, engage in a larger discussion here, great. If this is not quite the right venue, then I'll, pick up the phone and call.
I don't think it's for just the sense of updating you in a report. I don't see that as being an issue. We're not taking any action or anything. I look at Christine.
we certainly, this isn't the right forum to amend the building code, but this department could give an update on what the usage patterns are and how that's been affected by development or something like that. So that certainly would be.
And I'm curious about the effectiveness of the codes that we have. in terms of people's actual consumption once the dwellings are inhabited.
Would we have that data?
I don't know that we'd have that. I think my response would be it's the effectiveness of the individual that we're really concerned
I mean, are
about.
they working? My question is it working? If we have a green building code in place, is it working?
Yeah, and I'd tell you, it seems to be all of the conservation measures put together seem to be, as you heard from Mike, we are far exceeding what we thought would be our conservation number for the present, considering we backed up to phase 2. It's far exceeding what we thought, to the point that we're going to have to look at the whole financial structure again.
Right, okay.
So, I mean, it hasn't dropped a whole lot from when we were in the phase 3 and the state mandated number. So I think the most effective, where I think the most effectiveness is in conservation is the individuals themselves, regardless of what the codes are. The codes take into a lot, things like low flush toilets.
So we're getting into a fairly substantive discussion, and this is agenda forecast. So I would just suggest that we discuss whether or not we can agendize this item, with apologies for cutting off a very excellent discussion.
Yeah.
So
Up to you all.
shall we add it? Are there two commissioners that are interested?
I would like to piggyback on that. Actually, I'm interested in knowing how many new units are built and to be built additionally, and also what's the occupancy rate at this time, if there's any way of getting that. I mean, if difficult, impossible, then forget it. But if you have it, I think that'd be helpful information. Maybe Ramon has it. I don't know. With this forecast?
No, actually, our CDD department would have that.
Yeah, that's
most
definitely more of
likely.
a planning issue. I mean, certainly this department could tell you how many connections it has and how those have increased over the years and usage patterns. But as far as how much development there's been in the city, I think that's getting beyond the scope of this commission a little bit.
New connections, I think,
that would be helpful.
certainly a reasonable question.
Yeah, and that's
Yes.
absolutely something,
And what were
data
the-
that you all would have and could bring.
Right.
Sure.
Certainly.
Yeah, so I would support that. So I say let's look at the agenda, and perhaps Mr. Zern, you can make a suggestion on when you think would be a good time to squeeze that into the calendar.
Let me go back and we'll look at it internally, and then I'll come back at our next meeting.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
And if I may, I think that January 2nd is a holiday, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe it is.
Yes. So we'll send out our usual note to see how everybody's vacation schedule and availability looks. Propose a couple of alternative dates if, in fact, you want to meet in January.
I'd strongly suggest a meeting in January because I think the bill introduction deadline is January 30th, if I'm not mistaken. And
yes.
And if we're going to have a legislative update, we should probably get in before bills get introduced, or at least discuss.
Let's just do it the following Monday. We can just do it the following Monday.
Fine with
Or is
me.
it another commission meeting?
Yeah, so staff can just look for another date when we can get access.
Catalina will send you guys out. We'll just take the next Monday and the following Monday after that. I think both of those will be within that time frame.
Yep.
Okay, very good.
Great.
Any other comments or suggestions related to the forecast? Okay, hearing none. Madam Clerk, next item.
8, adjournment.
Okay, very good. We're adjourned for today. Thank you.
Thank you.